Hi, I'm Tim Schools, President and CEO of Capstar Bank. Capstar Bank is excited to host this year's event, and I congratulate all honorees. It is through leadership such as yours that Nashville has so many wonderful companies and continues to thrive and increase its competitiveness nationally as a place to live and do business. Over the past 13 years, Capstar has been fortunate to help form and grow a number of organizations across our community. It's exciting to see your success, and we appreciate all that you do.
Hello and welcome to In Charge Talks, our series of conversations with various leaders from around the region. I'm Geert De Lombaerde, the editor of the Post, and I am pleased to be joined today by Stuart McWhorter, investor, entrepreneur with a lot of different interests, to talk about what he's been up to and what he's doing next. Stuart, good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mentioned you've got a lot of different roles. You left state work most recently a couple months ago, and you've already made a couple of new headlines, so maybe we'll start with that.
Sure.
You're a big Clemson fan.
I am.
But the first piece of news you made was buying a Kentucky related property. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you landed there.
Yeah, so well, first of all, thanks for having me here and the opportunity to visit. So I left the state in June, beginning of June, and was pursuing some opportunities to work with Clemson. The president of the university and I had been talking about working on some larger strategic opportunities around entrepreneurship and innovation. And when the pandemic hit, of course, across all industries, it hit higher ed as well. And so we put a pause on that in July. And about that time, I started having conversations with somebody I've invested with before by the name of Shannon Terry. Yep. Shannon has a background in publishing, started Rivals.com and 24/7 Sports and a handful of other businesses. And I was an investor in 24/7 Sports, as well as a few other assets, probably 5 companies that I've invested in with him. And we started having conversations about the next thing. He was wrapping up his time with CBS, who purchased 24/7 Sports. And during that time, we just discovered that we were learning a lot about the pandemic and what that was doing for our society and our culture. And we really wanted to go out and establish new companies to focus on things that matter to people. And obviously, sports is one of those. With his background and our work together, we both realized that eventually that was something we wanted to do. But in the meantime, while we're pursuing to build a company around that, we're also looking at a couple other companies, and we have started a few as a result of that. But yeah, that's where I'm spending a large amount of my time. And Kentucky Sports Radio was a company that we liked a lot. And it's got a great brand. It's obviously got a very passionate fan base. And we started conversations with Matt Jones, who owned it, really sort of accelerated those conversations this summer and was able to get something done late this fall, early winter. And it's been a fantastic partnership, despite Kentucky basketball not having its typical year. But
that's good for fan engagement, right?
It
Mad people or online people.
maybe more than normal.
Yeah.
But we've enjoyed that relationship, and we're pursuing some other opportunities along those lines as well. But I got a lot of questions from friends that are Kentucky fans and wondering why I was involved in it. And but a lot of it is just we're in the beginning of stages of building something, and it takes a long time and some planning to get to where we want to go. But that's part of what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Sports has definitely been, through the pandemic, an area of engagement. At least online. You know, there are some questions if you look out and about just how much people may or may not return to full sports events afterward.
That's right.
But they're still paying attention digitally.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
And sports, just like some of the other things that we're doing, is an outlet for people. And I think one of the things we've learned in this pandemic is that engagement, whether that's online or if it's having one-on-one engagement, is something that people desire. And we've lived the last almost 12 months now in a different world, and I know everyone's looking forward to the time when we can get out and start doing things that we used to be able to do. but sports is one of those that brings people together. And obviously we've been able to get through this pandemic having some sports, when I think probably this time last year we were all worried, are we going to have any sports? And I think we've been able to do quite a bit, obviously through this. But I think that's part of one of the things that we're really looking at is what are the areas like sports or like outdoors, another company that we've started called Outsider, where people can deeply engage, and discover, what that is, and build relationships and memories. And so that's, again, part of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. There's a deep knowledge base there with Shannon, and a lot of people around here know him
right
well. When you look at those brands and the potential opportunities that you're looking for from a management or strategy, leadership point of view, what are you looking for that works for that engagement? What are the backgrounds that maybe people will bring to that work?
Sure. Yeah. So it's just always been our mantra. I've been investing in early stage companies and startups for almost 25 years, and without a doubt, it's always about the people you invest in. It doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day what the business is or what their execution plan is. It's their ability to navigate any challenges and opportunities. And Shannon is one of those entrepreneurs that I would rank among the top 1% of entrepreneurs that we've invested in. And so what that means to me is his ability to not only have a vision, but also understand how to navigate and identify talent. And in this publishing world that we live in, that he has particularly lived in, it's just hard to find people who can think and work to a standard that he has set. And so the ability to attract talent is key, and he can do that. And so for me, as an investor in particular, I'm looking for those types of opportunities and people, and having a prior experience with him. And I've invested with Shannon and have known him for 15 years. And I knew that if and when the time was going to come for him to start looking at new businesses, I was going to be there. I wanted to be there because of my prior experiences. You always want to, you never want to pass up opportunities with people you've invested with before that have had success.
Right. Yeah. It's not quite that there's a template, but there's a shared. There is a shared knowledge, a shared trust that's a head start on starting from scratch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've done, he has done with his team, is we've got a company that, taking really all of the sort of the software publishing platform, if you look at what 24/7 did, and even prior to that, Rivals, there's a history of building sort of this backbone and a system on how to enhance the publisher's component, the publishing component of that business. And so we have a company that is building that platform, that software, not only for our own companies, but to be available for service to the outside businesses. And it's real time, it's artificial intelligence, and it's using even human capital and human intelligence to bridge that, so that decisions are made on real time decisions, so that, because it's a fast paced world, particularly as it's moving quickly. And so you've got to have the information at your fingertips so you can make decisions at that moment. So taking all of this history of these companies that Shannon has built and efficiently and effectively managed over these years, we have that business, and that sort of is really a core component moving forward. So when you ask these questions, about the people, it's also the people who've built these systems and have the knowledge and experience to know how to continue to enhance that, not only for our own purposes, but certainly for other companies in the publishing space.
Yeah. One of the themes that we found running through our conversations really the past year is this idea that we had plans to do X in 2 years, and now we either have the need or the opportunity to do that in half of X or a quarter of X. We just have to put our foot on the gas and go.
Right.
How does that translate to what you're seeing in the market in terms of the opportunities maybe that are coming across your desk, the way that entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs are thinking about things these days?
Sure. Well, again, we've learned a lot from the pandemic, and I would say, a lot of the headlines now are, what will life look like, post-COVID? And from virtual meetings to in-person meetings to office space to virtual offices, and that I think also along the lines of business opportunities that are entrepreneurs that are out there trying to either start or build a business, and how they will navigate the new norm, whatever that new norm will look like. And so, I would just say again, it goes back not so when I think about opportunities, I'm thinking more about the people who have the ability to see that and go and do it with a lot of confidence, understanding that obviously mistakes will be made, but they see something and they want to pierce it as quickly as they can. And I think having the ability to be there to advise, to be there to provide some capital or other resources is really key. So again, it's assessing the individuals that see something and can act quickly on it. Obviously, my background is mostly healthcare and technology, so that's where I tend to sort of have my interests aligned. But again, it's really around those people and listening to what they are saying right now and where they're trying to find those opportunities is, they're looking for, understanding the last 12 months or 11 months has been somewhat of an anomaly in terms of how they conduct business. But many are looking for those opportunities to get back into, personal engagement, whether that's having an office or some hybrid of an office. I think there's always going to be opportunity to utilize technology in terms of how to move quickly through a business plan and execution. But
Right.
But I'm seeing and hearing more and more, and I think as we get closer to a true reopening and a vaccine has been provided to a majority of the workforce, then I think we'll start to see that play out much more quickly.
As an investor and a board member and an advisor, a lot of times maybe in the past, part of your job was to tell your entrepreneurs, go faster, push harder.
Right.
Is that dynamic almost changed a little bit, or might it change here in the next year, where you might just say, hey, I know you see this opportunity, but think about this and this and this, and maybe just hold back a little bit?
That's a good question. I think it just depends on what the opportunity may be. I feel that what I have seen in the pandemic is a much quicker execution on things, both on strategy, but also, we've had, particularly in the, I'm aligned with really two funds that were born out of Clayton Associates. One is FCA Venture Partners, and the other is Altitude Ventures. And both of those funds have had, during 2020 and even early in this first quarter of 21, they've had a lot of transactions and exits and also investments that I don't think was really on their radar this time last year. Okay. So a lot of that had been accelerated. And I would say that holds true for a lot of the other venture firms, particularly in Nashville that I know, because I've also have investments in some of them as well, and I see what they're doing, and I would say that did accelerate. But on the flip side, companies that either took PPP or other sources of capital to give them a longer runway, those do exist too, and they've just had to kind of lengthen the runway. And based on their business, the pandemic has really hurt them. Yeah. So they've just extended their ability to execute. And thankfully, either through PPP programs or other investors, whether that's venture or banks that are making loans, have given them that ability to extend that runway to the degree that they can then revisit whatever makes sense for them in terms of their business plan.
Right, yeah, strategies may change, but differently than what they had in mind, yeah. Is that a dynamic that you think continues for the next few years? They're kind of the really fast movers and then the ones who will take longer to recover?
Likely so,
yeah.
Likely so. And I think these are, times when are out of our control, and we're trying to, in a lot of ways, learning from what this pandemic has done and trying to react to what the market is telling us, and being able to sort of shift those gears either down or up, either way. Again, a lot of it depends on the industry. I think that, the things that I tend to focus on, healthcare and technology, I think most of those, in my mind, the opportunities are to move quicker. But depending again on what kind of business you're talking about, it could be quite opposite, and you might want to slow it down and wait for things to settle, whatever that may mean. That big factor that is really out of your control, you just got to wait it out. But then the question is, do you have the ability to wait it out?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or in one case, we wrote recently about an LBMC survey of local business leaders that said, especially on the M&A side, potential buyers are waiting to see, is that business that they were looking at going to be as healthy as they thought?
That's right.
And if so, when can they move to get that best price for the best possible business? So there's a lot of dancing going on in that respect.
Yeah, it's tough to be patient when, and particularly when you're seeing things just take off and you're scratching your head thinking, I should have done something a month ago or 90 days ago or a year ago. And I think being patient, but understanding really the types of investments you want to make and being disciplined around that is key, just like with anything.
Absolutely, yeah. You mentioned healthcare a few times, and maybe it's a good time to transition to your work at the state. You did some healthcare work at the state level as well. Maybe tell us a little bit about that and kind of maybe what you took away that you can apply here to being back in the private sector.
Yeah, so after the governor was elected, I went into the administration as the Commissioner of Finance and Administration, and which was a fantastic opportunity and very grateful for that unique opportunity. First 90 days of the governor being in office, we decided that it was really important to set up a task force to explore where in healthcare the governor could really see opportunity to either provide more access, make it more affordable. And so we set up a healthcare modernization task force, which I co-chaired with Bill Carpenter. And prior to establishing that task force, we spent about 6 months canvassing around the state, having town hall meetings with a very diverse group of healthcare providers, physicians, payers, a variety of constituents around healthcare, just to learn and hear what some of their challenges were and what those opportunities may be. And unfortunately, as we finished our town hall listening tour, we set up the task force, had one meeting, and then COVID hit, and obviously we had to sort of put that on the back burner until we could work through. And now that I've left, I don't know where that stands, but I will say this, that personally I learned a lot in touring around the state and listening to people. I went to every single one of the listening sessions. We took lots of notes and created a really good database on the kinds of things that we were interested in as a state. And access was obviously probably the largest common denominator of all conversations. And so I would say, for me personally, I think that there are clearly opportunities to address healthcare in the most vulnerable populations around the state. And it's something that I personally have interest in. I think there's opportunity from the private sector. I clearly think there's opportunities from the public sector, likely opportunities for public and private to partner to find opportunities to create better access and affordability to healthcare. I've spent pretty much my entire life in healthcare, and I think this, for me personally, is something that I want to pursue. Whether that's an investment or whether that's just trying to bring people together and continue that work and that discussion. I am having conversations with people in Nashville now about what that can look like.
Right.
If I was to be, placing my time and bets on where I want to spend, and I'm 52, so the next 15 years, that's an area that I really want to pursue personally.
Yeah, I was going to ask if while you're on the task force, obviously you're focused on the job at hand, but your investor side of your brain is thinking, okay, I'm flagging that, I'm paying attention to that.
That's right.
And just connecting dots.
It is, and I think in this case it's a little different in that as an investor, you look at opportunities to invest in because you want to get a return, and clearly that's important. Personally for me, if I'm running a fund, I've got limited partners. That clearly is the goal. personally, I think where the business and the just the question of how do you provide better access, you have to be careful that it's not viewed as a profit and a money making, clearly as a buy and sell proposition. If it's a business, you obviously got to make money to keep the doors open. But I also feel, just my personal conviction is that this is the opportunity, though, to do something that's right for the state and for the most vulnerable populations. I don't think with the right focus and the right team of people, I don't think it's difficult to do. It's just you got to have the right focus and making sure that you're addressing the greatest need. And that's really, it's almost a challenge that I have, just what does that look like, and getting the right people involved in that, both from a healthcare industry, but also grassroots community, because at the end of the day, those are the folks that really know what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Right.
And I think it's important we listen and try to figure out what those solutions are. So it's a little, it's an investment, and it's, hey, yeah, I'm an opportunistic person, but also at the same time, I think there's also a duty, and I think we can't always go into, when it's particularly like that, I don't think you can go into it with that in mind. Otherwise, I think it's set up to fail almost immediately.
Yeah, it's a short-term opportunity at best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody in state government work, but the governor has, over the course of his administration, brought in a lot of people with private sector leadership expertise, yourself, Butch Ely over at different departments. And that brings its advantages. From your perspective as a manager, as a leader, is it also frustrating trying to work the way that you might in the private sector, but in a public sector environment? What was that push and pull for you?
Sure, it's another good question, and it was obviously very different than what I was used to before entering, and I'd never served in any government capacity before. My job in particular for F&A was, the primary job was the budget, and that, taking my background and experience and lending that into that process was actually, I wouldn't say it was easy, because it's a large budget with many moving parts.
Yep.
But I think taking the approach of a private sector approach to the budget, and from me personally, was very helpful. The Commissioner of Finance and Administration has multiple roles. Budget, again, is the majority of it, but there's lots of other things that and responsibilities that commissioner has, and yeah, you get, the state government's a large, complex organization and process, and there are legislators that are very passionate about their constituents and very passionate about what they believe is in the best interest of their districts, and so you have to take all of those things into consideration when moving any legislation or any policy along. And with that many on Capitol Hill, it's a long process. It's not that you can have decisions made the next 24 hours. It's a long process. Yeah. So if there's 10 things you want to do, you might be lucky to get one.
Yeah.
And you really need to know what that one is. And I would say that when we came in, obviously the governor has a lot of private sector experience, and a business person that was coming to state government with that in mind. Governor Haslam was the same way, and Bredesen was the same way too.
Yep.
And I think what I learned, and I believe what he's learned along, is that it's a complex and very large ship, and you can't just turn it quickly. It takes time and a lot of investment in people, in listening to ideas and understanding what the legislative body is passionate about, and making sure that aligns with the governor's beliefs and what his agenda is as well.
It's like having a lot of activist shareholders.
It is.
Constantly chirping at you.
In a lot of ways it is.
Yeah. Conversely, do you look now at the experience in state government and say, from a management leadership point of view, I've been able to bring something back that maybe I didn't have before, a skill set or a way of doing some certain things?
Well, certainly I have a deeper appreciation for what goes on in our state, from a state government perspective. It's and I will say, what I discovered in my time there is that the people that work for the state of Tennessee are, deeply passionate about the state, and we're fortunate. I think the state's very fortunate to have, not just the Lee administration and not just the department heads and the commissioners, but the people that are going in every day, or not going in every day, but that are showing up and working every day, that really turn the wheel.
Yeah.
There's some just extremely bright, very passionate and capable individuals. And so, I learned a lot from that perspective. And we touched on this. I learned that it takes a lot of time and energy to make decisions and impact. And I think, looking at a 4-year, or and hopefully in the governor's case 8 years, when he's done, he can look back and say, here are the things I was able to do. And I think that's part of that, as you reflect, is think about all the different things it takes to get there. But for me, I would say that clearly we touched on this. I think the experience I had with the healthcare modernization task force, spending that time doing the town halls and listening to her, I gained a lot of information and knowledge and insight that I just didn't have. And being able to utilize that and take that beyond into the next 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, I think will help me in that perspective. The governor asked me to head up the COVID task force when all of this started coming on a year ago. Being able to just put the right people in the right seats to put that structure together so we could move forward was a key piece of that I will take with me in terms of identifying leadership and finding the right people that were knowledgeable and willing to roll up their sleeves and jump in, because we didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we just didn't know what we were about to walk into.
Right.
So
put somebody in place and say, go.
Absolutely.
Make progress.
That's right.
Yeah.
We didn't have any time to sit around and talk about it. We had to do it.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a great place to end it. Stuart, thanks very much for your time and your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
For more In Charge Talks episodes and much more from our first quarter magazine, which is focused on leadership and management topics, visit NashvillePost.com and click on the magazine tab. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'll see you around soon.